Hi there. Welcome back to Tiff Reads Books, where I read books and then talk to you about them. Today, I am going to talk to you about the sequel to Godkiller called Sunbringer that just came out a couple months ago. I have finally read it, and I have some thoughts. Oh boy, do I have some thoughts. I am starting another book that I'm not enjoying. I was actually hoping that it was going to fix some of the things that I didn't like, but I can't be so lucky. So, just give him a moment. I think he's done. This is me reading Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner, so you don't have to. Oh boy. Okay, I'm like 13% in. So I'm going to give you some recaps on where I'm up to so far. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them because every little fiber in my being just wants to forget this book. We just want to forget it. And like, it's... Okay. We're going to flash back a little bit to November-ish of 2023. I read Godkiller and I was really looking forward to it. And I got maybe 30, 40 pages in and was like, oh no. Oh no. And it just kept getting more and more oh no as it went on, and I decided to go ahead and finish it and tell you all the reasons why I didn't like it. And do I remember the plot of it? Vaguely. Vaguely. So a lot of what's happening now is me remembering things, and I will give the author this. She's doing a really good job of spending the first little bit of the book reminding us about what happened while interweaving that into the continuation of the plot. I will give her that. She is doing a nice job of that. There's a recap without it being an info dump of a recap. I still don't like the characters though, and that's an issue. Okay, so Sunbringer starts off immediately after Godkiller ends. Like, we're jumping right in. So we start off with a scene with the king, Aaron, and I genuinely forgot who Aaron was, forgot he was the king, and so I was kind of appreciative of this. So we start off with him in a room. He's just had his like chest ripped open because the goddess Heseth was living in his chest, and when Kissin killed the goddess, it ripped her out of his chest, and he was essentially going to die because he'd made a pact with that goddess in order to keep him alive. But she was no longer there. His heart was no longer there. So he's kind of like dying, and it's very weird. And in the middle of his dying, there's another goddess of the hearth that was kind of attached to Heseth and to him, named Hestra. And their names are so similar that I kept getting confused and having to go back and being like, wait, who are we talking about? So that was frustrating. So she was living in the hearth, and she kind of offered to make a deal with him. So she jumped into the open wound, and just kind of was like, this is where I live now. But she's like really angry at Aaron for like letting Heseth die. And so she's like kind of being a feisty thing. And then meanwhile, his soldiers come in and they're like, what can we do for you? And he's like, you can pledge to me, because that's what Hestra needed, was their like pledge of loyalty. So I guess that's like a vicarious thing. Like if they like claim, like if they pledge to him, it's like claiming to pledging to Hestra. Hestra can claim that, I guess, and then she can grow stronger. So they like pledge to him, and then Hestra's like, by the way, they don't trust you. Can't you hear it in their voices? There's like one that like keeps questioning him, and another that's like, oh, you child. I don't know. Weird, odd. That ends the scene. We like, with him being declared Sunbringer because like a halo of light comes over him, and one of his like top 3 guards is like, Sunbringer, and so he gets called Sunbringer. So there's the name of the book. Chapter 2. We jump to Inara and Ilugast. So Inara is the like 12-year-old girl who has the god of white lies attached to her, that's like soul-bound with her. His name is Skediseth. I don't know. Skedi. They're like bound to each other. And then Ilugast is a baker / former soldier for Aaron, who was like all pissed off that Aaron betrayed him. And I was like, boy, it was all set up for you to be betrayed. So that's who those two characters are. We start with them. They've like made their way back to like Kissin's sisters, and they're like her adoptive sisters, and they're gonna have to tell them that Kissin died. And so they like go do that and explain what happened, that they saw her fall to her death. And Inara's like, but it's okay because Kissin got her vengeance against the fire god. And Yatho, who is like Kissin's sister that like makes all of Kissin's prosthetics, is like, okay, I guess, sure. But then she tries to blame Skedi, the god of white lies, and I wasn't quite sure why, because she's like, oh, it's your fault because you're not separated from Inara yet. And I was like, but why though? Why is it his fault? I don't understand. That was their initial quest, so I guess loop-de-loop blame. And then Elo's like, no, she did it for me. She died for me and for Midrin, which I guess is the name of the realm, so that Elo could kill the king, because Elo at this point thinks he killed Eren, when that's why like Eren has like a big wound in his chest. And then he's still wounded from Hiseth, the goddess of fire, like put her hand on his chest and like burnt him. But also he had like a curse in the back of his head. And they did something to like break this curse, which was put on them by the guy who was leading the pilgrimage to this one city where the gods still lived. And that's the end of the last book. I vaguely remember this, like I said. So chapter 3. Now we're at Kissin. Kissin wakes up like in the arms of the ocean god Osidison. Citizen is how I always like remember. It's such a weird ass name. I'm gonna put it right here because anyway, she's like immediately pissed off, and she's like, how could you, blah blah blah, starts arguing with him. She's just being an outright dick to him. He like saved her life. She made this like pact with him at the end of the last book, but I guess she's pissed off that she did, so it's his fault that she like decided to make this thing. Sorry about the dog pacing back and forth, and just yeah. So then he's like, I have a warning for you. And she's like, what warning could you possibly have for me? Like, bitch, he's a god. He probably knows some shit that you don't know, right? Like, but she's like, I don't understand how you could possibly think he knows anything. And I'm like, okay, we're just being obstinate and argumentative to be obstinate and argumentative because we're edgy. That's pretty much what's happening here, right? So I'm just like, okay. So he warns her. She's like, I don't care, bitch. You're probably a liar. And his warning is that, hey, the followers of Hiseth are going to come and, like, burn your fucking village because they're upset that you killed her. And she's like, you couldn't possibly know that. She just died a couple days ago. How could you know anything? It's not like you're a god. Like, bitch. So he's like, it'll be led by her and her followers. She's like, you're a fucking liar, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets attacked by ships, and they have this, like, type of weapon, like brid something, and it's like a god-killing metal, and he gets like harpooned by it, and then Kissin saves him, and then the chapter ends. So I wasn't really paying too much attention because I was very bored. Chapter 4. So Elogast is now under interrogation by Yatho's wife, who is Kissin's other adopted sister, and she's like, tell me exactly what you did and why it's your fault, and basically why I shouldn't fucking stab you right now. And so he's like, tells them what happened, and that he's the one that called the fire god, because he thought the fire god would like help him break the curse. And he was like, that's why I called her. And they're like, it's your fault, you caused Kissin's death. And he's like, bitch, I already said that, but okay. But then they're like, you get out of our house. And he's like, no, let me prove it to you. I had a curse, and she like wanted to break the curse. I can prove it to you. Let's go talk to this guy Canovan or Cardovan or something like that, because he was like leading the pilgrimage, and he's the one who cursed everyone on the pilgrimage to basically be like given to the fire god, essentially, or something like that. They were all supposed to be given to somebody as like a curse. And so Yatho and Tella are like, picks or it didn't happen. So they decide to go hunt down this Cardovan guy. Chapter 5 is, I stopped putting chapter numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's chapter 5 is Eren is basically like trying to convince his 3 commanders that they need to go to war. They're hesitant. I don't remember this chapter barely. So they're hesitant. Hestra points out that one of the commanders doesn't trust him, and that the other isn't letting him know what he's thinking. And I guess everybody soul bonded with a god can like see the auras around people. Like Inara talks about all the time about seeing people's colors and being able to like read people's auras. And I guess this goddess Hestra is doing that for Aaron to be like, you can trust this one, you can't trust that one. But they're getting ready to go to war. I think, I can't remember against who or why, but they're getting ready to go to war. I just kept being like, I kept having Pirates of the Caribbean playing in my head.
And so, we shall go to war.
That's like pretty much all I could think of. So, chapter 6. Kissin, like, is all grumpy. She's like leaving the shrine area. Her prosthetic is kind of mangled, so she like steals some pieces off the statue for O'Citizen, and she's like making herself like a crutch, and she kind of walks along the beach, and then she starts like witnessing these like warships gathering from Talisha, which is, sounds like a name, but it's the like country next door. And she like managed to spy on them over like the edge of a cliff, and they're like repairing a statue of Heseth and invoking her to like bring them to war. So essentially we're getting ready for war. That's pretty much what's happening. I'm partway through chapter 7, and we're like, we had like a bar fight with Canovan, whatever his name is. We're like having a bar fight with him because he like didn't expect Elogast to like come back in and be alive, and Yatho got mad at Inara for like helping to like hold him in place because she shouldn't be doing that, I guess. I don't fucking know, man. That's where we're at. I'm already kind of irritated at some of like the pacing is off. I'm bored with a lot of scenes. I don't really care. There's so many characters, so many POVs that's happening, and this is where I said, like, I've read some books that have done it really well and some that don't do it very well, because we've had some chapters from, like, Sketty's perspective as well. Like, there's so many different perspectives. And I think Robin Hobb did it really well in the Live Ship Trader series, and this one does not do it well. And it's, like, trying to do that, and it's not doing it. And then there's, like, so much, like, we're trying to set things up. We're trying to have all these little things. And then at one point, Kissin's like talking about what she's gonna go back and do. She's like, I'm gonna go find Inara, and she's like, I'm gonna fuck some sense into Elogast. And I'm like, she's like, he would like that. And I was like, he didn't really like it when you did it before. Why would he like it now? So, also, I don't like the fact that like a 30-something-year-old woman thinks she can fuck sense into people, when I'm like, that is not a very those of us in our 30s know that we can't do that. You cannot use your genitals to make people see sense into things. You just can't. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to go read some more, and I'm going to be checking in with you as I'm reading this time. I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to chill. For once, it's 7:30, and I actually don't have something I have to go run off and do. I just got back from the thing I was doing, and I got back way early, because apparently when you're 40s, almost 40s, and you go hang out with your friends for, like, happy hour, you're home by, like, 7 o'clock. It's so wild. Okay, so I'm about to start chapter 13, which is page 99. So, basically, here's what's happened. Kissin has decided that she's going to go down the coast and destroy all the Heseth statues that she can possibly destroy. And to do that, she, like, stole a horse, broke out a bunch, used them to pull down a statue. And so, of course, she's being tracked, and she got caught doing this. So she's like, she got in a fight, trying to protect herself, and another god saved her. Like, this woman who kills gods keeps having gods left and right save her, and I don't understand it. Elo has been baking some bread, and apparently is going to join the resistance, but he doesn't really like the idea of resistance, but he thinks he can lead them, but he also really doesn't like the idea of resistance. Inara wants to join the resistance, but everyone tells her she's too young, and it turns out that Yatho's wife, Tella, or whatever, she has been working with the resistance and knew that Canovan was cursing people, but thought he would never do it to Kissin. Because, you know, I never thought the leopards would eat my face, apparently. I'm very confused at her clothing descriptions. She says she was wearing an elegant white jacket that bared her arms, showing silver bracelets on both, and a blue tunic beneath that came down to her knees, over wide trousers that were tucked into fine leather boots. when she says jacket that bared her arms, does she mean a medieval doublet? Because we're clearly in like medieval times, right? So is she talking about a doublet? Like, does she mean like a doublet? Or does she mean a jacket? Because if she was wearing a jacket over the tunic and the tunic came to her knees, the medieval jacket things are like a lot longer than tunics. I'm so confused and I'm stuck on it. And it's stupid and I shouldn't be stuck on it. But I'm stuck on it. So, okay. Kissin has gone to the goddess On, who is the river goddess, for healing. She passed the fuck out as soon as she got there. Elo has convinced at least some of the rebels to actually be rebels other than disseminating words to actually go fight, I guess. Don't know what we're fighting or how we're enacting it, but we're fighting. And Inara has followed Telle, Telle, has followed her, Telly, is it Telly, like television, has followed her into the archives and found a mention of Skediseth in the logs. And apparently, this library works on a Dewey Decimal System. So, we're finding his history so that we can figure out why they're bound. That's where we're at right now. So we have like 2 plots happening, and Kissin's kind of fucking off doing her own destroying statues thing. Apparently Skedi and Inara summoned a goddess, the goddess of learning, Cyan, and Inara asked her like a million questions and she didn't give an answer to any of them and then faded away. And that was the whole scene. I'm tired. So you know what bothers me about Kissin being a dick? Is that she's a dick and then she gets what she wants. That's what bothers me. That's what bothers me. So she's just got like rescued by this river goddess and she's like pissed off about it because to rescue her, the river goddess called this wind god and the wind god killed the teenagers that were going to kill Kissin. So she's mad that the kids were killed. And she's like asking the goddess for like opinion, advice, information, something. And so she says, Kissin closed her eyes, panic tightening in her chest. "This is what you brought me here to tell me," she said. "I understand. I've seen this. I am trying. You are failing." From the goddess. Kissin bared her teeth, incensed. "And what's it to you? Your waddles run no matter who fishes in them." Anne laughed, tipping her head back to expose her throat, but the smile did not reach her eyes. "Is it just gods you think so little of?" she asked, "or is it all speaking beings?" "Fuck you, answer the question," is Kissin's reply. So the god gets all upset, does all these things, and then answers her. Why? Why? I can't. I can't. So Anne, on whatever, the river god, asked Kissin there not to kill the king, but to save him. To save him. And Kissin got this information out of her by making her angry. Because apparently when you anger people, they tell you the things they don't want to tell you, which is fucking bullshit. Also, if she called her there, she wanted her to know. She just had to be patient. Another evening of me suffering through this book. It shouldn't be this bad for me. I genuinely think I'm just being extra harsh, probably, because I just have a bad taste in my mouth about it. But, we literally cannot go, like, a full chapter, without somebody mentioning Kissin. It's like the Bechdel test, but Kissin instead of men. Like, these people cannot have a conversation without in their head being like, "Oh, I miss Kissin. I wish she was here." When it's like, y'all are doing just fine on your own. Like, literally just fine. So, I don't know where I mentioned last, but Elo had like a conversation with a local lord. I have to get closer because the AC just kicked on. With a local lord and tried to convince him to like close the gates to King Aaron. Telly, she gave a speech about moving the archives that hold the records of all the gods somewhere safer where the king can't have them destroyed. And that started a riot. Her and Inara had to hide because Inara was there. They tried to like arrest them, and then when they hid, they like the guards went to her house and tried to find her there, but she wasn't there. They're like hiding with another archivist, and Elo has found them. Elo and Yatho have found where they're hiding, and now they're all discussing leaving to like run away from the king's visit. But apparently something changed in Elo, and he looks like big and scary. And Inara is both like wanting his help and wanting to help him, but also hating him. And I don't understand why, really. It's just like angsty preteen shit, it seems like. I don't know. I thought there was something in the last book about how Skedi couldn't go very far from her, but apparently he was just able to like fly over the whole city. So I don't know. I genuinely don't know what's happening. Like, at least the sky is pretty. But we're 6 days ahead already. We just jumped 6 days because it's Science Day or Science Day or however the fuck you say it. Maybe it's Science Day, because then it's supposed to sound like Science Day, because she's like the goddess of literature and learning. Anyway, that's the day that the attack's supposed to happen. So, we're just jumping right in. Kissen's hitching a ride on the wind god. She had to give them her sword to get there, I guess. I don't know. Me and the dog are walking. Okay. Took the dog for a walk. Walked on the walking pad for a mile. Took a shower. I'm all shiny because I'm moisturized. So we're ready to settle in. I've got about 90 pages left, and I'm going to try my best to finish it tonight, but we'll see. Depends on what time my boyfriend gets home. It's probably going to be tomorrow that I'm going to finish it. My hair is like all frizzy. It was so humid today. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Book. Okay. Book. So I got to pull my hair back. This is ridiculous. Inara and Telly, I'm just gonna call her Telly. They go down to like the archives, start trying to clear things out, and the goddess Cyan, she starts like raging because she's like, "You're stealing my shit," and Inara like uses her will to like calm her, and Skedi gets the credit for it, and Telly is like, "Let them think it's him, don't reveal like this power." And so like Skedi gets like a gift, like an offering from one of the archivists that's with them, Solom, Solom, and he gets like an offering from him, and so he like grows. His heart grew 2 sizes that day. He like grows. It's so fucking weird. Anyway, he grows and he gets shinier. Because he's got an offering now. And Kissen got dumped. Like I said, she was like, riding the winds. So she got dumped in this like pig pen outside of Sacra. Sakre. I need a pronunciation guide, ma'am. Miss Hannah, I need a pronunciation guide. I have no idea how to pronounce these things because, like, I get it with fantasy. You generally don't. Like, fantasy can be a little difficult, but all of the words at least feel like this. They come from like a similar root, a similar world. Like some of these are, we've got like words don't feel like they're coming from the same place. She also did a thing. I'm gonna jump back, but she did a thing where she was like having people speak in a different language and was like using some of the words of the language. And I'm like, ma'am, do you think you're Tolkien? It doesn't work when you do that. Like, I don't like it when they do that. There's another book I DNF'd recently. Fog and Fireflies did this, and it was in a real language. I should have tried translating some of those pages. I wonder if they would translate. But there would be whole blocks of text in another language, and it would be like, none of the characters knew what was happening because this is what the person was saying. And I was like, I didn't need those on page because it makes me just want to go look it up and see. And I'm like, I don't need the words on page. Like, I don't. There's better ways to indicate people speaking another language. And like, what Kaner's doing is she's like putting in a word and then putting like the translation in English because we're reading it in English. I don't know what language they're actually speaking, right? You know, because with fantasy, you can always assume they're not speaking English unless it's, you know, actual England. Anyway, so it's like she like puts the word in that language in italics, and then right next to it puts like the English word, and I'm like, so then the sentence is like, you read this like italicized word, and it's like she was like, Kissin was like telling this horse to like stop, calm down, please wait, and so it would be like the word and then wait, and then like the word and then please, and then the word and then calm, and then the word and then patience, and I was like, oh my god. Anyway, so Kissin rode on the wind to this like pig. She got dumped in a pig pen, and right after she like insulted the god, called him like a devil or a demon or something, and so he dumped her in a pig pen. And I was like, yeah, he would. She's honestly so fucking annoying. I can't handle her. And she was like, why the hell would you bring me here? This is Sacra, not Lessian. And he was like, you're where you need to be. Bye, bitch, and left. And she ended up getting arrested. She was like, I have a letter for the king. She like went into this like court, like market, stole someone's fruit, and then was like, I have a message for the king. And the guards like arrested her, and she was like, I have a message for the king. Just let me like get my message and get the fuck out of here. And they were like, this isn't the king's town anymore. And I was like, okay. So she like ends up in a cage, and then she gets out, and she, like half rest she gets brought to this like woman who's in charge, and the woman is Inara's mom, and she's out for vengeance for her daughter, and meanwhile Inara's like, I'm out for vengeance for my mom and Kissin, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. I probably saw it coming. Like, I figured her mom wasn't dead. Like, anyway, because her mom's like kind of a big deal in the resistance. So yeah. And then meanwhile, one of Aaron's guards, that's the king, one of his commanders, Ancon, it's like Anton but with a C, I think. He goes and like approaches Elo and is like, let me into your city, and Elo's like, fuck off. And that's like a little short chapter, and then Aaron discovers him like tied up naked, I think on the back of a horse. Some of these scenes are so confusing in the way that they're written. So confusing the way they're written. And so I think he was on the back of the horse, and he was like all tied up, and he was naked but in a silk wrap. A silk robe, a satin robe, a shiny robe, a shining robe. So I don't know if he was actually naked or in a robe. I was very confused. I don't really think it matters that much. But Aaron was like, cut the rope, and I was like, what fucking rope are you cutting? Apparently the horse that he was tied to something. So the horse got cut loose, and the horse took off, and Aaron was like, if he stays on, he'll survive. And the dude like fell, got clotheslined, like literally clotheslined, and fell. And I guess we're supposed to be seeing like the change in Aaron's character, because all of his guards were shocked that he would do that. So I guess we're supposed to be seeing the change in his character. So that's kind of where everything's at right now. That was like the longest update, but I did read like almost 100 pages today, I think. Or that was like 40 or 50 pages, I think, that I read, because I went from 50% to 73%. So that was a lot that was going on. The only interesting thing, I think, is the plotline with Inara's mom being alive. I'm curious about that. Apparently, we're worried that Elo's personality is changing. And there's, like,
so many different things to keep up with, and we're not doing any of them well. You know how I said the scenes were written weird, right? So while Kissin was like recovering, she's like recovering in this cave with the goddess An or An, Aan, and she's like a river goddess, right? And so she has her like little like priest essentially. Like Kristen kept calling him her hermit. And so he like lives there and like tends to her shrine and stuff. And he's probably like her companion. And he's sitting next to Kissin. They're like quietly like chilling in the morning. And he like nudges a kettle over to Kissin with his foot, and he's like, tea? And Kissin stared at the kettle for a minute and then took a big swig, and I was like, straight from the kettle? Are we talking about, like, what is your definition of a kettle in this world? Because also one of the market stalls that Kissin passed was a hot pot stall, and I was like, okay. And then instead of like a what do they normally call them? It's not like chamber pots, right? They normally call them chamber pots in this level of fantasy, like this type of fantasy. Normally it's called a chamber pot. We called it a toilet pan instead, and I was like, when was the word toilet invented? And apparently it was invented in like the 16th century in France, but for a cloth that you wiped your face with. You know, like when you see the toilette, like little wet naps. That was when the word was first like taken in, like to English, into the English language. Okay, so we didn't start using toilet associated with like chamber pot or outhouses until like the 1800s, I believe, when I was reading. So genuinely a little confused with some of the anachronisms. I don't normally mind them, but I don't normally mind them that much, but it depends on the tone you're going for. And in some of this, it just feels odd. So, that's my very long update. I'm gonna go read some more, and I will probably not update you for a little bit unless something really pisses me off. So Kissin has just found out what Inara basically already found out when she was like in the archives, and I didn't really tell you because I don't give a fuck. Sorry. It was implied, and I was like, it's either going to be one of those things where it's going to happen and we'll find out for sure later, or it's not and it's a red herring. But it seems like Inara's father is a god. She's a demigod. Canavan didn't die, he just got severely wounded, which I thought, but then they were talking about death so much, and specifically invoking Canavan, that I was like, did I miss something? So, and I didn't want to go back. Chapter 50 starts with Kissin. It's Kissin. Kissin chapter. Chapter 50 starts with a Kissin chapter. Kissin was locked in the basement of a townhouse. Townhouse, all one word, not like townhouse, like a house in town. Like, I looked it up. If we're medieval, like we're acting, most rural houses and even like castles did not have basements. Like, and the word basement wasn't really used until the like 1900s. It would have been like, I can't remember what else it was called. Hold on. It was called an undercroft. And I'm like, bare minimum research. Just, I can't figure out what era we're supposed to be in. And townhouse? I can't figure out what era we're supposed to be in. I'm so confused. Okay, Inara used her power to call a bunch of little gods to help, including like this rosebush god who like built like a big briar in front of stuff so they could like have a wall that was like god protected. Canavan was helping her. He referred to her as God's Blood, and I was like, that should have been the name of this book, not Sunbringer. We should have named it God's Blood. That would have been such a better Godkiller and God's Blood. So much better than Sunbringer, like Godkiller and Sunbringer. Because this book isn't about Aaron. He's not the main character. Inara kind of is. So calling it God's Blood would have been so much better. Anyway, as soon as it happened, Aaron in the next chapter realized what was happening, and then the very next chapter, he killed a bunch of the gods. So apparently the gods want them to not kill the king just because invaders are coming. Give me a better reason.
Alright, so I finished Godkiller last night. And no, I didn't finish Godkiller last night. I keep saying that. I finished Sunbringer last night. It should have been called God's Blood. Just 100%. This is like a 1.5. It was a nothing burger of a book. Like, the explanation of the gods and how they work was so bogged down by the sheer number of gods introduced and then wiped away. The sheer number of people introduced for no reason other than to introduce more people. Like, I genuinely, all the found family that we had in the first one is gone. All of the good interactions is gone. Everyone becomes much more of a caricature of themselves than they were before. Like, Elo is suddenly like all about protecting, and Nara is just a snarky ass teenager, and like everyone's like, oh, she's so much like Kissin, and I'm like, well, fuck that. Like, if that's what we're gonna do with her and just make her that annoying edgelord character, I don't want to deal with it. Kissin is a dick to everybody, and it's not cute. Like, I don't like it when men are like that either in books. Like, I genuinely hate a main character that is nothing but a snarky asshole for no fucking reason other than they can be a snarky asshole. Look, I get Kissin has trauma from how she grew up, but she is at least 10 years removed from that, and when people are helping her, and these people have continued to help her, she needs to, like, get her shit under control instead of just being a raging bitch. There's no reason to act like that to everybody around you. There's genuinely no reason. I can't with it. It makes an unlikable character needs to have some sort of redeeming thing about them. Some sort of arc to improvement, some sort of something that makes you want to read about them, okay? I just finished recently The Ruin of Kings, and most of the characters in there are fairly unlikable. Kieran is such an angsty, whiny bitch. He's such a bitch. And I don't mind it necessarily, because him being a whiny little bitch gets him in so many shitty situations that he then has to evaluate his behaviors and get himself out of. And he does eventually. The other thing is, it's a little more redeemable because he's a teenager in the beginning of the book. He's a teenager. And it's the same thing with Fitz. Fitz is a whiny asshole who makes dumbass decisions, but Fitz is a teenager. And Fitz gets so much shit put on him. And as much as Fitz has some privileges for the fact that he has like his food and everything taken care of, he's a roof over his head, he's like an orphan who like has his shit taken care of, everybody leaves him out of everything and then expects him to understand exactly what he's supposed to do. And of course he doesn't understand. Kissin gets everything that she wants while being a dick about it. And I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy it when characters are just dicks to people and then get everything they want by being a dick. Like, it's not cute. I keep going back to, in my head, my high school graduation, my boyfriend who was a dick was being obnoxious, apparently, to the people in, like, he was just being obnoxious. That was his thing. He was 17 and because he was like 6 months younger than me, and he was fucking obnoxious. That's what he was, okay? And glad that ended, okay? He was fucking obnoxious. And he was making annoying noises, I guess, because my friend who didn't go to my high school was sitting with him, and she was telling me about it later. She was like, yeah, he was making really annoying noises, like obnoxious noises. And this guy turned around and yelled at him about it and was like, you need to shut up because you're not cute and it's not funny. And I was like, so every time Kissin's being a dick, I'm like, this is not cute and it's not funny. Like, every fucking time. And I said it before, I'm pretty sure I did in my Godkiller one, but I have played too much D&D with people who are like, I'm going to make an edgy lone wolf character, and they're just going to be a dick to everyone. And then they don't get what they want, and they're like, but that's what my character would do. And I swear to God, Miss Hannah is like, but that's what my character would do. And I'm like, fuck right off with your character. If I was the DM, rocks fall, everyone dies. Because I can't with this. I can't. I have never rocks falled, everyone dies. But I would if my players were acting like any of these characters in this book. And maybe, because I've recently learned that Jen Lyons comes from a D&D background. And maybe that's why her characters have consequences for being dicks. I don't recommend this. I will not be continuing. I can't. I was really hoping that if I gave it a second chance, even a slight improvement, I would have read the third. Because we're new. We're learning, right? I'm still learning what fantasy I like. This is not the fantasy I like. Not the fantasy I like. This month, I'm going to try John Gwynne. I've just ordered, what's the first one? The Shadow of the Gods, because the new one comes out in October. I'm going to do some buddy reads and do the next 2 books. I did get approved for an arc at the 3rd one, so please let me like the next one. I'll see you soon with something else. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something else out of it. Let me know what book you would like to see me do I read so you didn't have to. If you have a book that's come out and you want one of these. I think I'm going to do Gunslinger. I love Gunslinger, but I can still give you a, like, this is a dumb line, like, this, here's what's happened. I can still give you a full plot breakdown of Gunslinger, and I think I might do that. So, I'll see you soon with something.